All right, I'll note now the witness has been sworn. Before we begin with direct, I want to inquire, Officer Wright, have you watched or viewed in any way any of the testimony that's taken place in this trial since it started?
No, I have not.
Okay. Have you talked to anyone else about testimony they've given at trial?
No, I have not.
Very well. With that in mind, then, Ms. Blake, if you'd like to inquire, you may.
Thank you. Would you please state your name and spell it for the record?
Yes, Rick Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T.
And where are you currently employed?
I am currently employed as a contract special investigator for the FBI in Pocatello.
And what position did you hold prior to that?
Yes, I was a special agent with the FBI.
And for purposes of today, would you prefer investigator or agent?
Investigator is fine, or Mr. Wright is fine.
And how long were you employed with the FBI?
I was a special agent for 24 and a half years.
Do you have or did you receive any specialized training in order to be a special agent?
Yes, I attended the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia in 1997. That's approximately 4 months. And then after that, I was assigned to my first office, which was the Denver division in Denver, Colorado.
How long did you work in that division?
I worked there for over 21 years.
In addition to the initial training to be a special agent, have you received or did you receive any specialized training?
Yes, after my initial new agents training, I worked a variety of violations throughout my career, primarily criminal matters for the FBI. The FBI is roughly divided in half between criminal investigations and national security investigations. So I worked primarily criminal investigations and received a variety of specialized training in those type of investigations that I conducted.
What were some of the areas that you received specialized training in?
So initially I worked drugs and organized crime cases. And then for a period of about 8.5 years, I worked financial crimes and public corruption. And then for the last 11 years in the Denver division, I worked violent crime and specialized primarily in violent crimes against children. And that was before I transferred to the Pocatello resident agency in late 2018. And once there, I worked more general criminal matters for the FBI there in Pocatello. So throughout my career, I received specialized training in all those types of investigations, particularly regarding crimes against children, which was much of my career. I received specialized training in responding to missing abducted children, sex trafficking of children, other exploitation of children, international parental kidnappings. And I received that training. Usually most of these trainings were 1 to 5 day trainings, usually once or twice a year. Much of that came from within the FBI, from the Violent Crimes Against Children unit, or the Behavioral Analysis unit, or the Child Abduction Rapid Deployment teams that the FBI uses for child abductions, or from outside agencies or organizations like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and other law enforcement agencies.
And you indicated in about 2018, you ended up transferring to the Pocatello area?
Yes.
And is that a different division? How is that in relation to where you were at before in Denver?
Yes. So I transferred to the Pocatello resident agency of the Salt Lake City division of the FBI. The Salt Lake City division is the headquarters. The headquarters is located in Salt Lake City, Utah, and that division covers all of Utah, Idaho, and Montana. The Denver division covered all of Colorado and Wyoming. And so within a division, there are often these satellite offices called resident agencies, as was the case with the Pocatello resident agency being one. Within Idaho, there were 4 resident agencies at that time. One in Pocatello, another in Boise, Lewiston, and Coeur d'Alene, I believe.
And when you transferred to that resident agency in Pocatello, how many agents were employed at that resident agency?
Yes, at that time, there were 5 agents in the Pocatello resident agency. 3 of them did criminal work, which I was one, and the other 2 did national security work. That resident agency covered really all of eastern Idaho, about 17 counties, I believe. Our supervisor for the criminal agency in Pocatello was actually located in Boise, and that was Doug Hart.
At some point while working there in Pocatello, did you become involved in a search for a missing child named JJ Vallow?
Yes, I did.
Can you explain a little bit about why the FBI became involved?
So the FBI was contacted by the Rexburg Police Department about a child missing in their jurisdiction. That was on November 27th of 2019. And I spoke with Lieutenant Ron Ball and I believe Detective Ray Hermosillo from the Rexburg Police Department about that missing child and the circumstances under which he was missing. The FBI assists in missing children cases because of the Federal Kidnapping Act. Under that act, when children are missing because of the potential interstate nature of a kidnapping, it is a potential federal crime. Unfortunately, we usually don't know up front whether a federal crime has been committed or even if there is a kidnapping that has taken place. But because of the time-sensitive nature of those types of investigations, it's necessary to respond right away. And allow the FBI's resources to assist with that. And so when they described the circumstances under which Joshua Vallow or JJ Vallow was missing, we believe that met these requirements of the FBI being involved. And generally, when we have a child, we define that as a child of tender years that's missing under suspicious circumstances. We should get involved. And a child of tender years, I believe, is defined as 12 and under.
And did you know how old JJ Vallow was?
I believe he was 7 at the time.
When you first became involved, did you know anything about Tylee Ryan also being missing?
Shortly thereafter, I became aware that JJ had a sibling named Tylee Ryan. We did not realize that she was missing from Idaho at that time.
Do you recall approximately when yourself and or the FBI became involved in the search for JJ Vallow?
Yes, really almost immediately after that telephone call from the Rexburg Police Department, we offered our assistance and began to communicate with them on how we could provide further assistance. We opened an investigation. I believe we opened it as a police cooperation matter at first, and then within a few days changed that to a kidnapping classification. And I was assigned as the case agent on that. And due to the scope of the investigation, really the size of the investigation, we actually assigned a second case agent was assigned, and that was Travis Homer, also at the Pocatello RA.
And you'd already talked about being contacted by the Rexburg Police Department. Do you know if there were additional agencies involved in investigations linked to JJ being missing?
Yes, there were some related investigations being conducted by other agencies.
Do you know what those other investigations were looking into?
Yes, I do.
And what were those things?
So Rexburg Police Department, of course, was looking into the JJ being missing, but the Fremont County Sheriff's Office, also in Idaho, was looking at the death of Tammy Daybell. And there were 2 agencies in Arizona that I became aware of that were looking at incidents in their jurisdiction. That was in the Gilbert Police Department was one, and they were looking into an attempted shooting of Brandon Boudreaux, and the Chandler, Arizona Police Department was looking into the death of Charles Vallow.
Would it be fair to say that this turned into a joint investigation?
Yes.
And did you personally become involved in the investigation?
Yes, I did.
Did you become involved in the investigation into Tammy Daybell's death?
Yes, I did.
And then did you also investigate the JJ and Tylee being missing?
Yes.
Did you ultimately assist in investigating their deaths as well?
Yes.
Can you, and I think you indicated that you were assigned or you were the case agent. Can you explain a little bit about what the case agent does?
So really, when an investigation is open at the FBI, there's a case agent, or sometimes called a case manager, that is assigned. Most cases have one case agent, and due to their size, can be handled by one agent. So the agent has the responsibility for conducting the investigation, whether that's gathering evidence, conducting interviews, and so forth. And but the FBI, that agent can also call upon additional resources. Often that's other agents that may work in the unit, other staff within the office, and also pull up from resources from outside the office, but within the FBI. The FBI, being a national organization, has considerable resources, and that can include administrative, analytical, technical assistance, and so forth.
In this case, did you actually end up requesting some additional assistance?
Yes, I did.
And specifically, did you request assistance in looking at location data associated with Alex Cox or devices associated with him?
Yes, there were a number of devices, digital devices, recovered during the course of the investigation. Many of those were processed by the regional computer forensics laboratory in Salt Lake City. As also, for many of those digital devices, they were cell phones, and we were able to get records associated with them, including location data. Many of those records went to a member of the FBI's cellular analysis survey team, who reviewed those records and helped us interpret them and review them.
And do you recall specifically which agent from the CAS team looked at the records?
Yes, that was Agent Nick Balance in the Phoenix, Arizona division.
As he would go through that information, would he share it with you?
Yes.
And did he provide information to assist you further in your investigation regarding location data linked to Alex Cox or a device associated with him?
Yes, there was one particular device that Alex Cox seemed to use extensively, and Nick Balance was reviewing records for that device, transactional records, and location information, and providing me with and other investigators with information that we could follow up with from those records.
And in relation to that information, were there specific time frames that you were interested in or looked at?
Yes. So this particular device had extensive location information within it. In the initial stages of the investigation, when we learned that JJ was missing, and shortly thereafter that Tylee was also missing from Idaho, we didn't know really where they had gone missing exactly and when they had gone missing. Initially, it was as much as potentially 3 months they had been missing, from sometime around August until the investigation was starting here in late November. And so over the course of that, the next ensuing months, we were able to narrow that time frame down significantly to help us determine where they had been or where they had last been seen, and when they had gone missing. And that was critical for us to determine what had happened to them, just because it was hard to know where and when in time to look at the various types of information that would be available to identify what had happened to them. And so by approximately April of 2020, we had narrowed down that they had both been went missing in September of 2019. Tylee appears to have gone missing first. Sometime around the 8th or the 9th of September was our best information, and that JJ had gone missing approximately 2 weeks later, around September 22nd or September 23rd. So I requested, at that stage in the investigation, we had not been able to locate the children. And Nick Balance had been providing location information.
Judge, at this point, it's becoming a significant narrative. Can the state ask some questions?
There's an objection there on
Yes.
narrative. I'll sustain that. Go ahead, Ms. Blake.
So in determining the last known sighting of Tylee being around September 8th or 9th, and the last known of JJ around September 22nd or 23rd, what time period did you initially focus in on in relation to location data?
So I requested that Nick Balance look at those timeframes in September related to the children, and he was doing that and providing us with information. And due to the size and the amount of this information, I asked for him to provide me with the same information that he was reviewing, and put it in a format that I could review, that I could start that process of also looking at that data and see if there were potential avenues for investigation. So he provided me with a file of all of the location information for that particular device for really all of September of 2019, from September 1st through September 30th.
At some point, did you also end up requesting location data for the month of October?
I did.
And why did you request location data for the month of October?
So there were incidents that happened in October, not necessarily related to the children, but related to other components of this joint investigation. And at a later date, it was actually after the children had been recovered. I requested him, Nick Balance, provide me the records for all of October, and I did a similar review as I did for the September data, and I completed that in September of 2020.
And when you were reviewing this data from September and October, were you also following up on information that you gained from that location data?
Yes, it was really a process. As I said, Nick Balance initially was giving us information that he was observing in those records, and we were following up as investigators. Sometimes I did that personally. Sometimes other investigators did that, particularly in the Rexburg Police Department. They were doing that. And then as I started looking at those records myself, I tried to, as best as I could, determine whether there's potential follow-up investigation can be at these sites where the device had gone. And some of that I did myself. Sometimes other investigators were tasked to go and follow up with what we observed.
And in going through that location data and then looking through the follow-up that was done, did you assist in preparing a summary exhibit today?
Yes, I did.
And is that, actually, I will do this. Your Honor, I have what's been marked as State's Exhibit 299. It's actually a PowerPoint on a thumb drive would be the original exhibit. I have a copy of that for counsel and the court. And then I also have printed out copies, a courtesy copy for Your Honor, one for the court and one for counsel.
And can you explain a little more about what the summary exhibit is?
Yes, Your Honor. And I was going to see if I could have the witness shown a copy.
Very well.
And Investigator Wright, I just asked them to hand you Exhibit 299. In reviewing the location data, is that some of the information included within this exhibit?
Yes, it is.
Does this exhibit also contain some of the follow-up investigation that was completed as well?
Yes, it does.
Would this, in looking through it, does this appear to be an accurate depiction of the exhibit created?
Yes, it does.
And would this aid you in your testimony today?
Yes.
And would this do you believe this would aid the jurors in understanding the evidence in your testimony?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for admission of State's Exhibit 299.
Any objection?
Judge, the information as it came from the Homer J. Maximus account is admitted by way of stipulation. Just so we have a clear record, the other information that was not obtained from Homer J. Maximus and part of this officer's investigation, I won't object at this time to that admission of those.
All right, so under Rule of Evidence 1006, then this may be admitted as a summary to prove content.
And Your Honor, I'm just looking at the time and wondering if before I start publication, it may be a good time for the morning break.
I think that's a good idea, Ms. Blake. Thank you. We'll go ahead and take a morning recess. It is just before 10 o'clock, so let's try and come back on at 10:20.
All rise, please.
9th of 2019.
Yes.
Did you learn anything in relation to that cluster of red dots?
Yes. So subsequently, I had been to that location on January 3rd of 2020 for the first time. I'd been on the property and I had walked much of the outer property as well, but it was under snow at the time. And then subsequently, a search was conducted on June 9th at that location, and I was also present. And I'm aware there is a fire pit on the property. And although I don't have it marked on here, it's approximately in this area.
So around the same area as those data points?
Yes, in the vicinity, yes.
Do you know what was ultimately found near those data points?
So at a nearby location to the fire pit, investigators approximately in this area were able to recover human remains that had been buried.
Do you know who those human remains were ultimately determined to be?
Yes, they were Tylee Ryan.
And from there, that device left and went to Del Taco?
Yes, the device I was reviewing for Alex Cox had left at approximately 11:45 a.m. on September 9th, left the Daybell property and traveled at driving speed back to Rexburg, where it stopped at the Del Taco at about 11:52. So approximately the time this text was sent.
As part of your investigation, did you focus on other dates in September?
Yes, I did.
What were those dates?
So we had also looked at dates associated with J.J. Vallow, that we believe that J.J. Vallow we knew he was in school after September 9th. We also had other information that he had been observed up until at least September 22nd. His first date of being absent from school was September 23rd. Fairly early in the investigation, there was actually some confusion whether he had attended school on the 23rd or not. We initially thought he had been in school the 23rd, and then asked for further clarification from the school on the attendance records and determined that was actually his first day of absence from school. So his last known time in school was September 20th.
And can you tell us what we're seeing on this slide?
Yes, this is a summary of my review of the device for Alex Cox and its activities on the evening of Sunday, September 22nd, 2019, into Monday, September 23rd, 2019.
And what did you determine in relation to the device associated with Alex for Sunday, September 22nd?
Yes, from 1626 in the afternoon and really until 9:41 a.m. the following day of the 23rd, the device is at 565 Pioneer Road, though it travels back and forth between the two associated units within the complex multiple times. So as from 1626 to 1708, it appears to be in 175. I should note that all of these locations, we had data points that were either GPS or Wi-Fi, and the range of the margin of error was 4 to 17 meters. So it leaves 175, and by 1709, it seems to be in 107 from 1709 to 1711. Then from 1712 to 1845, it appears to be back in 175. From 1046 to 2003, it appears to be in 107 again. And then from 2004 to 2009, it is back in 175. At 2011, it goes back to 107 and appears to stay there for the night. Although here it shows it ending at 2356 on September 22nd. That was just helped me to really break the last data point on September 22nd. And the next data point we get is at 0011 on the 23rd, and it's still in 107. And the range of the times that appears to be in 107 stays there, that it stays there from until 0941.
And again, you had indicated that those units were within a short walking distance.
Yes, approximately 80 meters between the units. Approximately 80 minutes between the units. 80 meters. Sorry, I apologize.
80 meters between the units, is that correct?
Yes.
And a 1 to 2 minute walk?
Yes, that's what I would estimate.
Did you continue to look at the location data for Monday, September 23rd?
I did.
And can you tell us what we're seeing in this slide?
Yes, on the morning of September 23rd, 2019, that device leaves Unit 107 at approximately 9:41 a.m. It travels north. It's on US Highway 20 and travels to the residence of Chad Daybell, 202 North, 1900 East, where it arrives at approximately 9:55. And then between 9:55 and 10:12, approximately 17 minutes, the device is in the vicinity of the Daybell residence. We get 6 data points during that period of time in or around the Daybell property. The first one is at 9:55. It's at the front of the property near the garage, and this is a Wi-Fi data point with a 50-meter radius. And then at 9:56, there is another data point on the rear northern part of the property. And it is by what appears to be a pond on the property. And I use that term pond, but it's it could be a pond or a pit. The 2 occasions I was on the property, it didn't have any water in it. There's that data point there, and it's a GPS data point with a 4-meter radius. And then at 10:02, there's also another GPS data point by the pond on the property. By 10:05, the next data point I receive is near the front door of the house. And it's a Wi-Fi data point with a 68-meter radius. There's another one at 10:07, also near the front of the house. That's a Wi-Fi data point with a 92-meter radius. And then by 10:12, that data point is actually in the middle of the road, the Salem Road and 200 North. And from there, there's a series of data points. And that one is a Wi-Fi data point with a 28-meter radius. And after that, there's a series of data points seeming to show the device leaving at driving speed, and it returns to 565 Pioneer Road and goes to Unit 175 and arrives there at 10:22 and stays there until 11:14. So just to summarize, from the time it left Alex's residence at 9:41, it took 41 minutes for it to return again to the same 565 Pioneer Road complex, but then go to Lori Vallow's unit. And there's approximately a 10 to 14 minute drive either way.
To be clear, this device leaves from the residence associated with Alex Cox and goes to Chad Daybell's residence. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then the device goes from Chad Daybell's residence to Lori Vallow's residence. Is that correct?
Yes.
And this is the day after the last known sighting of JJ Vallow?
Yes.
Can you tell us what we're seeing in this slide?
So this is an image from the mapping software that I was reviewing of the Daybell property, with the road on the left being 1900 East or Salem Road, and the road along the south being 200 North. Again, this is the main residence for the Daybells, and these were outbuildings on the property. There was a pond-like terrain feature on the property, and next to that terrain feature was a tree. The first data point, the data points I mentioned earlier are here on the left, and the first one was again at 9:55 near the garage. That was here, and that's again a Wi-Fi data point with a 50-meter radius. Approximately 1 minute later at 9:56, the data point is here by the pond, and that's a GPS data point with a 4-meter radius. And then at 10:02, there's another data point near the last one. It's a GPS data point with a 3-meter radius. By 10:05, we get data points just here in front of the house. One is near the front door. It's a Wi-Fi data point with a 38-meter radius. And then at 10:07, one next to it, also near the front of the house, a Wi-Fi data point with a 92-meter radius. And the final data point is right here at 10:12. And that is a Wi-Fi data point with a 28-meter radius. And again, from that point, the device, we get a series of data points showing it traveling back to 565 Pioneer Road.
And looking at the data points by the pond or pit area, at some point in the investigation, did those data points gain more significance?
Yes, they did.
And why was that?
In light of that text message from Chad to Tammy on September 9th, and coupling with that with the location information showing that Alex was also on the property that same morning when something was being burned and buried, it made us scrutinize these particular data points even more, since they corresponded with the approximate time when JJ was last known to be alive. And so it seemed to indicate that Alex may have been on this property in these locations about the time the children were last known to be alive.
Was a search conducted around that area?
Yes. So that search had been conducted on June 9th of 2019. The Rexburg Police Department had obtained a search warrant for the property. I was present for that search. The FBI's evidence response team handled the crime scene investigation at the site, and a search was conducted of that property.
Do you know what was located in that vicinity?
Yes, near these data points here by the pond, really just almost next to or under that tree was a grave for J.J. Vallow.
Did you look at how many times that device associated with Alex Cox was in the vicinity of the Daybell residence for the month of September?
Yes, I did. As part of going through the day-by-day activities of that device, I observed it seemed to be at or in the vicinity of the Daybell residence in the month of September 4 times. These were Friday, September 6th. It was there from 12:42 to 12:53. These data points seem to be near the front or possibly in the residence, but just near the front of the residence. I didn't observe anything on the back property. On September 9th, again, as I previously discussed, we had a series of data points, including some on the back property. And then on September 3rd, we had a series of data points from 9:55 to 10:12, some of which were also on the back property. And then on September 25th, this device for Alex was at the Daybell residence from about 10:05 to 10:22. And these did not seem to be on the back property. They were also near the front of the residence.
And out of those, the two dates of significance, would it be fair to say they were September 9th and September 23rd?
Yes.
And again, through your investigation, who did you determine Alex Cox knew that resided at the Daybell residence?
The only person I'm aware that he knew was Chad Daybell.
Did you also look at some data points associated with window tinting?
Yes. Some of the activities that this device, places that it seemed to have gone was a particular window tinting place in Rexburg. And I saw it visit the window tinting place 3 times, although briefly each time. The first time was on September 23rd, 2019. And so this is the afternoon after the device had been at the Daybell residence. And this was from 1353 to 1958. It went to this Dan's window tinting at 2551 West, 6800 South in Rexburg.
And I think you may have said 1958. Was it 1358?
Yes, I'm sorry. It was from 1353 to 1358.
So just a 5-minute stop.
Yes.
Thank you. And then proceed.
And then on September 25th, 2019, from 9:02 to 9:03, it returned to that same Dan's window tinting. And then later that day, it was there again from 11:57 to 11:59.
And could those short stops be consistent with someone dropping a vehicle off to get window tinting put on?
It could be, yes.
And you'd previously talked about being aware of an attempted shooting of Brandon Boudreaux. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
Do you know when that attempted shooting occurred?
Yes, it happened on the morning of October 2nd, 2019.
What are we seeing in this slide?
So the images on the right of the vehicle is a Jeep that belonged to Tylee Ryan. This vehicle was a search of the vehicle was conducted by the Rexburg Police Department I believe, about December 18th of 2019. And the FBI's evidence response team in Salt Lake assisted with processing this vehicle. And I was not present during this search. And at a later time, as I reviewed photographs taken during the search, I noted there were some receipts taken by the evidence response team of 2 receipts that they had located within the vehicle. And I further scrutinized those two receipts and obtained some information off of them.
And was there information on those receipts that caught your attention?
Yes, both of the receipts possibly had some significance. The first receipt on the right there was a receipt from October 1st, 2019 at 13:12. And it was from a restaurant in Mesa, Arizona called Los Favoritos. And it was for for food and a beverage. And it was a cash transaction in the amount of $886. The second receipt was from October 18th, 2019 at 8:05 p.m. And it's from Chick-fil-A in Ammon, Idaho, also for food and a beverage. And it was a cash transaction in the amount of $8.15.
And when we look at this Jeep, can you tell if the windows appear to be tinted?
Yes, they do.
And when we talked about the device going to the window tint shop for the first time, do you recall the date that device first showed up at the tinting shop?
Yes, September 23rd, 2019.
And was that after that device had been up in the vicinity of Chad Daybell's property?
Yes.
Do you know where the attempted shooting of Brandon Boudreaux took place?
Yes, it took place at the residence where Brandon Boudreaux was residing in Gilbert, Arizona, in front of his house.
And again, the date of that attempted shooting?
October 2nd, 2019, in the morning, roughly 9 a.m., I believe.
And with regard to that second receipt, was there something significant about October 18th of 2019?
Yes. On the night of October 18th, 2019 into October 19th, 2019, Tammy Daybell died at her residence.
As part of your investigation, did you also look into some devices that were purchased?
Yes, I did. So in the course of this investigation, we found additional devices that were associated with Alex Cox and others in this investigation. 2 particular devices were possibly associated with Alex Cox, and I did some follow-up investigation to obtain more information on those 2 devices.
And what did you learn in relation to those 2 devices?
Yes, the first device was a track phone, and we found that it was associated with the same Homer J. Maximus as the Verizon phone that I was reviewing. So a person can associate multiple phones with their Google account. And so there was another phone number associated with that Google account. We obtained additional information from TrackPhone regarding that device. And although we did not recover that device, we found that it was a prepaid cellular phone purchased from a Walmart in Idaho Falls on September 25th, 2019, and it was purchased at 1910. The phone number for that particular device was 304-960-5958. I was notified about this device and a second device by I don't recall if it was Nick Balance or analyst Nikki Heidemann who was reviewing these records. But this second device was a device that was actually recovered from Lori Vallow's, had been in Lori's Vallow's residence at Unit 175. And the Rexburg Police Department had obtained that device from the property management company who had disposed of items within her apartment after it had been vacated. So in approximately January of 2020, they were disposing of property in that location.
Judge, I'm going to object at this point. I've allowed a bit of a narrative, but this is becoming into levels of hearsay and speculation and
I'll sustain that on a narrative objection.
Through the investigation, did you learn that a cell phone had been recovered from Lori Vallow's apartment?
Yes,
And did you ultimately discuss that with other investigators?
yes,
And did you discuss the information they had regarding that cell phone?
yes.
And and what did you learn from them?
That the device was given to them by the property management company.
Judge, I'm going to object. It's hearsay.
Your Honor, if I may respond.
Respond.
It's not coming in for the truth of the matter. It's coming in for why this investigator did what he did next within the investigation.
On that point, I am going to overrule the objection, so you can continue.
What did you learn from the other investigators regarding that device?
Just that they had located a device.
Judge, I'm going to object. That is hearsay.
That's sustained.
Based on what you learned from the other investigators, what, if anything, did you do in relation to that device?
I was given track phone records that we obtained that showed that the device had been purchased from a Walmart in Rexburg, Idaho. And I went there for both of these two devices and recovered receipts for those, the purchase of those records. The purchase of those phones.
Did you do that based on the information you obtained from other law enforcement officers?
Yes, they gave me the track phone records.
And that was a track phone that other investigators had recovered?
One of these two phones had been recovered by other investigators. The other one was just associated with a Google account.
And the one recovered by the investigators was deemed to have significance or potential significance to this investigation?
Judge, argumentative. So objection.
Overruled.
Could you ask the question again, please?
Was the device recovered determined by other investigators to potentially have significance to this investigation?
Yes.
And was it based on that information that you then took your next actions?
Yes.
And what information did they provide you in relation to that phone?
The records we got from Track Phone was just indicated that it was a prepaid phone from Track Phone, and where it was purchased and when.
And you indicated that you recovered the receipts associated with both of these devices?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, I have what's been marked as State's Exhibit 227A and 227B. And there's a copy for counsel, the court, and a courtesy copy for Your Honor.
Thank you.
And Investigator Wright, if you could please look at those 2 pages. And do you recognize those receipts?
Yes, I do.
And do those appear to be images of the receipts you recovered from Walmart?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, the state would move for admission of State's Exhibit 227A and B, I believe they may have been stipulated too, but if not, I believe foundation's been laid.
All right, any objection to the admission of 227A?
Judge, there was a previous stipulation regarding the business records with Walmart, and the agreement was that these exhibits would be stipulated too.
All right, so 227A and 227B are both now admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. And if they can just be handed to the court. Thank you. Outside of recovering the receipts for those dates in question, was there anything in relation to the data location for another device associated with Alex Cox that caught your attention?
No, I'm not sure. yet
I'll rephrase.
what you're asking.
On this slide, there's some timestamps. Are those in relation to some data location?
Oh, yes. Yes. So, yes. So the receipts showed the purchase of prepaid cellular phones from TracFone, and those purchases were made on one was made on September 25th, 2019 at 1910, and the other one was made on October 8th, 2019 at 1525. And in the course of my review of Alex Cox's main phone, his Verizon phone, and the Homer J. Maximus account, the data file I received from Nick Balance, I was reviewing his location at those particular times. And so on that same date, September 25th, 2019, from 1903 to 1918, I showed Alex Cox's phone, his device, being at the Walmart of 500 South Utah Avenue in Idaho Falls. That would cover the same time that item was being purchased, that TracFone was being purchased. Now, that TracFone purchase was a cash purchase, and it'd include only the phone and a 35-minute phone card and nothing else. On October 8th, I conducted a similar review and noted that Alex Cox's phone was at Walmart in Rexburg at 1451 North 2nd East between 1501 and 1537. And I noted that the receipt for the purchase of the TracFone, also a cash transaction that included just the phone and a 35-minute card, took place at 1525 within the range of the period of time when I showed Alex Cox's device being at that same Walmart.
And again, I know we've talked about this, but this was, did turn into a joint investigation.
Yes.
Did you look at some other data points associated with a device linked to Alex Cox for the end of September into the beginning of October?
Yes, I did.
And what did you determine in relation to that information?
This was the data file that I received from Nick Balance for Alex Cox's primary device, and I continued that review until the end of that data that he provided me, which was the end of September. It actually ended in the evening of September 30th, 2019. At a later date, Nick Balance, a few months later, provided to me the month of October in a similar file for that same device. And I continued a review of that, and I completed that in September of 2020. So in the course of that review, I noted some activity on the device from September 30th through October 3rd. On the afternoon of September 30th, the device was in Alex Cox's apartment, or seemed to be associated with that, between 1317 and 1622. And then there was a period of nearly 3 days that the device did not return to Unit 107. So the rest of September 30th, October 1st, and October 2nd, it was not in Unit 107, or did not appear to go there at all, based on the data I observed. The device stayed each of those nights in Unit 175, though there was some movement of the device on at least 2 of those days, but the movement of the device was within Rexburg itself. On October 3rd, the device then goes back to 107 for the first time at 1420. And again, that was the first time it had been there since September 30th at 1632, based on the data I reviewed.
Was there any other occasion where that device stayed in 175 all night?
I believe that was the only time it was there all night, other than from the time the device first appeared in 107, which was starting September 5th. So from the 1st through the 4th, it had been in 175 at night. But after that, it wouldn't stay the entire night there. It typically stayed the entire night in 107.
And the attempted shooting of Brandon Boudreaux was on October 2nd?
Yes, in Arizona. But this device did not leave Idaho, from what I observed during that particular date.
And previously on September 25th, this device was at a Walmart where another phone was purchased?
Yes.
As part of your investigation, did you also look into data associated with the device and gun ranges?
Yes, I did.
And with regard to the month of September, what did you find in relation to that?
I discovered that it went to gun ranges on multiple days in the month of September.
And can you tell us what we're seeing on this slide?
Yes, the first time I observed that device go to a gun range in the data I reviewed, starting in the September 1st, was actually on September 3rd of 2019. The device went to the same gun range 2 times that day. The first visit to the gun range, which is the Unified Sportsman's Gun Club in Rexburg, was at 13:45, and it left almost immediately at 13:46. Now, that gun range is located approximately 8 miles due west of Rexburg, and it's fairly isolated. There's not much else around that range. After it left that range that early afternoon at 14:05, it arrives at a Walmart in Rexburg, and it stays till 14:36. And then later that afternoon at 14:59, it returns to the Unified Sportsman's Gun Club and stays there until 16:51. On September 26th, I saw it go to that same Unified Sportsman's Gun Club again, and it stayed there from 16:54 to 18:58. Now, I noted there was some imprecise data. Sometimes it's hard to tell exactly where in the gun range it is, or I only could say it's in that general vicinity, or it seems to be at that gun range. Then on Friday, September 27th, it goes to that same gun range again, where it seems to stay from 15:54 to 18:45. And again, this had I noted there was some imprecise data and exactly breaks in the data, but it seemed to be there approximately that range of time.
And was there another date in September that you looked at in relation to that device in a gun range?
Yes, on September 28th, 2019, it went to that Unified Sportsman's Gun Club again, and was there from 15:25 to 17:58. On this particular date, for a period of the time it was there, we got some fairly precise data. I believe this was GPS data. And in this image, it's an image from the mapping software that I was looking at that shows an overhead view of the range. And it shows the data points for the device at the range on that date. This is one of the parking lots for the range here. This is a firing line for this particular range. There's another parking lot here for another range. On this date, at least during a period of time when it was there, we had data points as the device went further deeper into the range. This would be an area that was likely would be something somebody walked. And there are shooting berms in this location. And typically somebody would place a target at a berm at a particular distance. And then when at appropriate time could walk down and either place the target, look at a target they'd been shooting at, or remove a target. And this seems to show the device going to this furthest berm, which I believe these are 100, 200, and 300 yard berms. But the device travels to the furthest berm and then returns.
So would those be considered the long range part of a shooting range or the long distance part?
Yes, people shoot at all kinds of distances, depending on type of weapon and so forth. But typically, at a distance like that, that's usually a long-barreled weapon, a rifle or carbine, that would shoot at a range that ranges more than 100 yards.
And then if we look, you talked about another range in the corner of the image. What would that range be for?
It appears to be a shorter distance range. I believe that's possibly a 50-yard range. Somebody could shoot rifle on that or pistol. Most people shoot pistol at distances shorter than that.
So where the location data is, it would be more likely linked to some kind of a rifle?
Yes, that would probably most likely be a rifle range where it seems to be there.
And Your Honor, looking at the time, I think we may be at a good place to break for lunch.